I'm getting like teary-eyed. Hey y'all, I'm Jay. I'm a singing and songwriting teacher, and today I'm going to be taking a look at La Rosalia singing Me Quedo Contigo. Vamos a ver. Let's get into it. So immediately I'm hit with the richness and the kind of dissonance that the choir is singing with. Now, one thing about flamenco is that it comes with its own set of rules, especially when it comes to tonality.
Si me das a elegir entre tú y la riqueza, con esa grandeza que lleva consigo, ay amor, me quedo contigo.
Another sort of rule about flamenco is that it's all about the emotion. It's all about the unfiltered emotions behind the music that they're trying to portray. So, vocal technique kind of takes a backseat to that at all times. And here she's using kind of a breathy tone, which is sometimes looked down on, but it really conveys her vulnerability in this song, which is kind of about somebody who's willing to forgo and let go of all things for this person that she's talking about, which is a very, very vulnerable statement to make. So it makes total sense to use a tone quality like that.
Si me das a elegir entre tú y la gloria, a que hable la historia de mí por los siglos, ay amor.
It's interesting to me that the choir almost sounds like they're doing sort of something that's reminiscent of Gregorian chant or some type of old religious music, because this song is basically about somebody that is willing to forgo all physical earthly possessions and even some ideologies for this person that they're talking about, as if they're kind of feeling a religious pull towards this person. So it just makes perfect sense from a musical standpoint to have a choir singing like that behind her.
Me quedo contigo, me enamoré y te quiero, solo deseo
Ooh,
estar a tu lado, soñar
yes.
con tus ojos, besarte en los
She's so
labios,
big and
sentirme
dramatic.
en tu brazo, que soy muy feliz.
So here, Rosalia takes us to an amazing emotional climax with her first use of chest register or thick folds throughout the course of the song so far. Here, unlike some other belters, she's actually using more of like a dark vowel as opposed to like a smiley bright vowel that usually makes it a little bit easier to sing. But in flamenco, they kind of integrate something called a quejío, which is sort of this operatic cry that's done with like a low larynx, which is typical in opera music and music that sounds operatic. And this really brings about like this very just sad, heavy quality to the sound, which again, flamenco is all about the emotion. So this song is really dramatic, it's really dark, and it's really just desperately seeking to be with this person. So it makes perfect sense here.
Si me das a elegir entre tú y ese cielo, donde libre es el vuelo para ir a otro nido, ay amor, me quedo contigo.
On that particular line, she chops up the phrase a little bit, and we get a little bit more of that sob quality that we were talking about earlier as well, which makes perfect sense for that lyric.
Si me das a elegir entre tú y mis ideas, me quiero sin ella. Soy un hombre perdido, ay amor, me quedo contigo.
The pause that happens right before the chorus comes back in with her on the title of the song is so powerful. Silence is just as important as the actual music sometimes.
Me he enamorado, te quiero y te quiero, solo deseo entrar en
Yes,
tu
you better sing.
lado, soñar con tus
I'm getting like teary eyed.
ojos, besarte los labios, sentirme en tu brazo.
So the way that she just crafted that very, very powerful chest register dominant line into more of like a head register thin fold sound was so beautifully crafted. That was just expert level singing right there. That was incredible.
Soy muy feliz sentirme en tu brazo. Que soy muy feliz.
So the choir leaving her at the end in silence almost makes it feel like she's coming down from the high of feeling this religious experience, which is just absolutely heartbreaking. But I mean, it just adds so much emotional weight to this intense song that we've already heard. The way that this was arranged was so beautiful, and it was just voices, but it just goes to show how much you can do with the human voice and how expressive it can be. Brava. All right, y'all. I thought that was a really moving and beautiful performance. Rosalia is actually one of my favorite artists because I think that she does a really interesting job of taking flamenco and kind of infusing it with Latin pop and reggaeton and creating this new weird alternative sound that just really works for her and is really weird and bold and inspiring. I think she is just incredible. Total amazing performer. But when it comes to the style of flamenco, I think that it's very unique. And I think it may sound a little bit confusing to people that are kind of just used to pop music. I think one of the reasons that it's a little bit different from what we're used to hearing is that we're used to the major scale. And then we also have our typical minor scale. But they're kind of centralized around something similar to the Phrygian scale, which goes like this. Now, you might think that that sounds a little bit like the minor scale, and you'd be right. Phrygian is a type of minor scale, but it's a little bit more complex than that. I think it has this kind of mysterious quality to it that I think makes the Phrygian scale sound really interesting. And another thing that flamenco isn't afraid to kind of play around with is the concept of dissonance in music theory. Now, for those of you that don't know, because of something called the harmonic series, there are certain intervals in music that just kind of sound like they fit really well together. So one example is your major third, do mi do, your major fifth, do so do, and your perfect octave, do do do. But when you have dissonance, those are intervals that have a little bit of tension to them. They sound a little bit crunchy and weird together. So your half step, your major second also has a little bit of tension and dissonance to it. Your tritone especially. That one's super crunchy. But flamenco isn't afraid to make use of that and will sometimes use it to create something kind of grief-stricken or just mysterious sounding. Another thing that I find so interesting about flamenco music is all the parallels that I find it has with jazz, which is a distinctly American genre. So I think it's interesting that they share so many similarities. So for example, improvisation is a big part of both. With both jazz, like the players and singers will take turns during like repetitions of the song to kind of come up with their own unique solos and kind of new melodic lines. And flamenco is very similar. Like the singers are kind of expected to come up with these creative, unique melismas using the Phrygian scale. When it comes to the singing techniques of those genres, they also both have like distinct sounds and kind of unique noises that are very closely associated with those genres specifically. Like flamenco has the quejido, the kind of sobbing quality to it, and it also has the quiebros, which are kind of accepted within flamenco. And quiebros is just another word for like vocal cracks that kind of elevate that kind of sobbing quality. Because, you know, sometimes when people get overly emotional, their voice kind of cracks. So it kind of elevates the overall sound. And jazz has like scatting and these slides that are now more universally accepted in other pop like genres, but it was originally like a very distinct jazz thing. Another thing that's really similar about these two genres is that it's more of a unit or team mentality. Like in jazz, the singers and the players are kind of all seen as equals, and in flamenco, it's the same way, and they include the dancers in there. Whereas with like pop styles, for example, it's all about the singer and them being the stars. But with these two genres, it's more about a team. They also have really strong, what I would call like a subculture, meaning that people that play these specific genres are very close or tight knit, or they at least know each other. Like they would be able to pick each other out of a crowd because of just like the way that they carry themselves and just certain things that they know. So it's a very tight knit community in both those genres. Another thing that I should probably bring up is that this isn't actually Rosalia's song. It's a cover by a band called Los Chunguitos. And the closest thing I would compare them to is kind of like maybe the Osmonds back in the 70s or the Monkees or like really, really early Beatles. Just very much like standard pop of its time for sure.
Si me das a elegir entre tú y la riqueza, con esa grandeza.
And I think that personally for me, her version definitely elevates this song into this spiritual experience that elevates it way more than just your standard average pop fare song. I think that the inclusion of just the choir and them singing these very, very dissonant harmonies and the way that she's kind of shaping these phrases add just this grief stricken sorrow that leaves us feeling kind of empty at the end of it. All right, so once again, that was my reaction to La Rosalia singing Me Quedo Contigo. I thought that was a really beautiful and passionate performance, but let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. And as always, if you found anything that I said to be helpful or insightful or anything like that, feel free to click like, comment, subscribe, all of that really great stuff. It genuinely does help and I appreciate it. Thanks.